how will you remember Iverson? Chris, we'll start off with you.
Well, of course, as the architect of one of the greatest rants ever. There are people who have memorized that. I don't know if you might be one of them. People who have memorized that like it was a rap song, you know. And so
I believe Mr. Coleman here is right there.
You have the whole thing. Right?
Not a game.
Timing.
Not a game. Not a game. We're talking about practice.
No, that was tremendous. But obviously, on the court, Hall of Fame player. I've actually got him as my 7th best shooting guard of all time. Some people might think that's low, but I have him behind, obviously, Jordan, Kobe, Jerry West, Dwayne Wade, Clyde Drexler, George Gervin, and then Iverson. If you want to give him a handicap because of size, I think you could move him up to 5 behind Wade if you want. But, you know, just terrific player, no question about that. An iconic figure. I compare him, he was better than Pistol Pete Maravich, but a similar type of thing in that Pistol Pete was just an icon for the way he played, the way he scored. His teams, it was hard to win with him. And Pistol Pete never really won a lot. Iverson, same way. Now, he did get to the finals that one year, but outside of that, never had much success in the playoffs and things like that. Tough to play with because of his style, but an iconic figure, great one-on-one player and all that. Off the court, he's very complex person. I remember him as very, you know, his interviews, he gave some great interviews at times beyond the practice rant, but very thoughtful.
I agree.
Very remorseful,
Yep.
open, honest, and yet he never really had the discipline, the self-discipline to carry out a lot of the things he said at the press conferences. Like, I'm going to change, I'm going to be at practice, I'm going to do this and that. And so he meant well. He had a huge heart, but he didn't really have the discipline to carry it out. I remember doing research on a story for him for ESPN, the magazine, and he, at one point, he was, for a significant amount of time, he was taking care of up to 40 people. More than half of them adults. None of them worked. And he was providing for all of them, had a huge heart, somewhat maybe as a detriment. I mean, he spent money wildly for him on himself, on his friends, and stuff like that. But, and this is not, I don't mean any disrespect, because he clearly is a man, but in a lot of ways, he never grew up. Yep. And accepted a lot of the responsibilities that come with being an adult, such as showing up on time, respecting authority, respecting other people's time, you know, and things like that. And that's why he's not, you know, in the league. That's why it ended the way it did, because people will put up with that when you're a superstar dropping 27 points a game. But when you can't do that anymore, they don't want to be bothered with that. So, you know, it's, in a lot of ways, I don't know that he's fully prepared himself for life after basketball. You know, obviously not going to be a coach, you know, a broadcaster. Is he, you know, I'm sure the Sixers would hire him as just to be Allen Iverson, just to go out and represent us in the community. But will he be there all the time? You know, will he show up and stuff? Those are the concerns. So, very complex figure. I like him a lot, and obviously was just a fantastic player, one-on-one.
I always love when people have discipline, and I understand when undisciplined things happen, because sometimes circumstances are going to dictate that you may have to go above and beyond your means trying to support yourself and support people. If Allen Iverson had that same kind of unselfishness at times in the basketball court, he probably would have won a championship or two, or been a part of a championship team later on in his career, because that selfish tag followed him. Fairly or unfairly, because plenty of times a team needed a guy like an Allen Iverson and said, no, that's not going to be a good idea, because he's going to be all about him. He's not going to change the fabric of his being. And I think that's the one thing that has always bothered me about how great of a player Allen Iverson was, an 11-time All-Star. But at times I looked at him as the future unlived. His future, his NBA career could have been so much better in terms of winning championships, or maybe being recognized a lot better in a better light with a lot of people. So, yeah, the little man thing, I love the fact that he was a little guy that had a fearlessness about him. He didn't have a Napoleon complex. He was like, I'm the baddest one in this basketball court, and I'm going to show you. But I think sometimes in his personal life and on the basketball court, that genius turned out to be a curse. So I look at Allen Iverson, great player, Hall of Fame player, no question about that. But the future unlived is something I attach with him, because that basketball career in the NBA should have included a championship or two if Allen Iverson could have gotten out of the way of Allen Iverson.
You both make some very insightful points. how I will remember Allen Iverson. All-time quickness, all-time toughness, all-time selfishness. Me, myself, and Iverson. That's who he was to me. And Chris, he had the point guard tag, which I always resented. There was very little point guard in Allen.
There was points for him.
That's why he would have had to play to change his whole game to win championships.
And how he and Larry Brown got that team through a weak East, even albeit a weak East, to the finals, I still don't know. But I used to watch him in awe. I would go to games at the United Center when I was in Chicago just to watch him, to your point, Freddie, fearlessly rise up among the 7-foot trees and get absolutely hammered, annihilated, and drop 15 feet to the floor and hit it time and time and time again. What was he? Is he 5'11"? I don't know. 6 feet maybe? I think he's 5'11". Yeah. I had never seen such physical toughness, such fearlessness to attack, attack, attack. You cannot stop me at 5'11". I'm sorry, you 7'2" centers. You can't deal with me. I didn't see any Pete Maravich. I was a Maravich fan. Maravich could shoot threes. Allen, not much of a distance shooter.
I just mean, I don't mean style of play, but just
trick shots.
The story,
The mystique of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get all that. That one MVP year when they did get to the final, that was that year or was that the next year? It was the MVP year. 31 and 5 assists. Led the league in steals with 2.5 a game. Wow. And yet, Mutombo, Eric Snow, who else is there? McKee.
Aaron McKee.
It's like, what?
Hill.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Like an ESPN basketball league team.
Really?
Larry Brown realized, and that was what you guys were talking about, the way he played. That team was grinders, rebounders, defenders, spot-up shooters, guys who didn't need the basketball to play hard. And, you know, Mutombo was great that year. That's what you had to put around Allen Iverson to have any hope of winning. If you had another guy who could kind of do his thing, he was going to be frustrated. I mean, at the end, he played with Melo, and they both put up their numbers in Denver, but the team
for a couple
was out
of years.
the first
But then I
round.
was shocked at how quickly AI fell off after the first 2 years in Denver. And I don't think he kept himself in much off-season shape, and as age started to gain on him a little bit, he just went like that. And all of a sudden, he wasn't AI anymore.
When he was traded to Detroit.
Yeah. And then he was like, what?
Well, and
what happened to that guy?
I think he could have put up numbers still, but Detroit, remember, that team had Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace. They weren't going to just build everything around Iverson. And that's how he needed to play, you know, for the most part. And Denver was a wide open offensive style, so I think that
in the end, I agree with huge heart, deep soul. There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
But how much respect do I take away from Allen? Not as much as I should be taken away.
40-person entourage. It
wasn't an entourage. It was just friends, family members that, you know,
payroll,
their girlfriends.
right? They were all on the payroll.
Just taking care of family, you know.
When a rapper looks at your posse and says, dude, chill, you know you got too many people you got to worry about if you were Allen Iverson.
It's time to chill, that's for sure. Iverson's scoring average 26.7, sixth best in NBA history.